How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg Podcast. So today I'm actually recording in my house and the air conditioning has been broken for the last few days. And, we're having this insane heat wave in LA and it's actually just like a cool 95 right now in here as I'm recording this, but I don't know what it is, or I didn't until a little bit recently, but I have this kind of insane level of consistency and kind of discipline that I try to keep for myself. I don't know why or where it really comes from, but I know I could easily just hop on here, maybe do some nonsense little quick video or send out a tweet or YouTube community post saying, no podcast this week. The AC broke, can't record, it's too hot. Because it is hot, and we'll see if I go back on what I'm saying and not even finish this one all the way. But I don't know, myself can't let me just do that. I feel like the only way for me to truly get where I want to be and build discipline and consistency is stay with that schedule. So here we are. And I've always kind of wondered what that feeling is. And I'm not saying I would prescribe this kind of mental, hurdle I put myself through to anyone. I think some people have different ways of handling things and dealing with things. And then I heard someone talking about this thing on a podcast called grit. So, the word grit is kind of like the ability to persevere and go after your goals or get something done through hard work and be trying to be rewarded for it in the future. And I really feel like that is one of the personality traits or feelings or whatever you want to call it that I am most proud of myself in, and maybe also one of the biggest enemies, because like I'm saying, having to feel in that I need to still record this. But I don't know. Let me know kind of what you think about that. But anyway, the person was saying grit is the most important thing that separates someone that ends up being very successful and not. And it doesn't mean that those people don't have mad talent or are super creative. And this isn't just design or art or whatever I'm talking about. I mean, in general, because the ability to go through really hard times or fail and fail and fail again and hit all these obstacles doing one thing you love, it's very easy to just, stop that, pick up what you're doing and just try something else or quit. I've quit a lot of things in the past that I met with challenge that were very hard, like some sports and things and other shitty jobs that I didn't like. And it always left me feeling with this kind of sense of self-embarrassment or maybe disappointment because I couldn't finish it. But what I realized is I didn't want to finish it. And I kind of look at it as it set me up to really find what I do love with design and art. And I've met a lot more challenges in the design world and in content creation with YouTube and all this than I ever have working those shitty jobs or playing a sport in high school. And yet I don't ever have that feeling that I want to give it up and quit. And, there's other people that are more talented than me. And there's other people that are probably more talented than some of you listening and vice versa. You're more talented than others. But, I really do kind of think, listening to someone talk about that, it did make me think it does make sense that that's the biggest separating factor, because I know people who are, they are so good, but there's something in them that just doesn't let them kind of take it to the next level because they're, overwhelmed by all of it. But I'm not here to put anyone down in that way or anything. I'm just observing the differences. On the other hand, I know I'm talking about grit and being consistent, but the one aspect I've noticed myself getting a little bit more inconsistent in is creating personal art or personal design projects. I feel like I went on such a tear throughout the past year in personal work, especially, halfly motivated by Instagram and nice feedback loop on there, growing and posting new stuff, collaborations, whatever. But I don't know, I really do think I'm in a little bit of a burnout. I know it kind of contradicts what I say in the first part, because I do truly believe that the way that I do things does cause a burnout. However, I think it's a net positive a little bit. I need to do that hard work to satisfy that feeling of getting things done and kind of working hard. But I have been also setting myself a lot of time for rest and things, especially since I read that book, Rest. And I'm actually going to make a video about that coming out probably in the next 2 or 3 after this other cool one I have planned. But where was I getting at? Oh, with personal work, like, I don't know if this is how burnout feels for you guys with like design specifically, but it feels sometimes like when I sit down to design something, especially with personal work, you know, like you don't, like sometimes, man, like no containers, no boxes, no prompt, no brief. That shit can be hard sometimes, man. And mad props to artists who, you know, create everything conceptually through their own, like, just passion and power. And my point is, like, I have this feeling, I think that how I define my burnout with personal work is like, oh, I've done all the ideas I know. You know, like you feel like you've made all this work, especially in the age of social media, posting so much. And it's kind of like, maybe that's all the ideas I had for now. And I think the trick is for now. I don't think that I'm nearly out of ideas. I think that energy, you know, is like a actual finite thing that can be used up. And maybe I went so hard for this little short span that I'm kind of having to slow it down just a little bit in the personal work department. That way I can give myself more time to kind of recharge and fill up new ideas in the chamber. But yeah, it's been feeling a little bit weird. Like there's been, I don't post nearly everything that I do. So I do a lot of collage and other personal like printed work and mixed media stuff and messing around, and a lot of it I post the stuff I like. Sometimes the stuff I don't fully like I'll just throw out there just to kind of see how it is, and people end up liking it, so you never know. But I don't post everything because I feel like that's not the point. The point with the personal work is for me to get better at something and grow and, you know, just enjoy the personal practice of it. But it is nice posting online. But since I don't post everything lately, though, it's been like I haven't been posting a lot of it. A lot of it have been going into the filing cabinet or even in the trash, some of it physically and digitally in the recycle bin. One thing I will say, if you are feeling a little bit burnout or some of your ideas are running into creative block and things, I know I just said throw stuff away, but I do save a lot of drafts in folders, and sometimes you come back to them with a fresh set of eyes and you just step away from them for a little bit. And just that little act of separation is what actually gives you that spark of creativity and that idea. And that was actually another thing I learned about in that book, Rest. I know I'm always talking about that. I think I just get really obsessed with books that I read at different times. And they were like, oh, a lot of times all these people have these eureka moments, you know, like walking through, like, you know, you hear like a scientist discover something that he solved and it wasn't in the lab. It's when he was taking his walk in between working. And it's not to say that all that work didn't matter, but all that work was needed to do all the actual work, and then have your subconscious mind kind of ruminate, I think that's the word, whatever, marinate on it or whatever, and think about it. And then that's how you get those like eureka moments, like, oh yes, I got it, and for inspiration, run to the keyboard or the lab or whatever the fuck you're doing, and, you know, act on it. So don't underestimate the power of walks, you know. If you're feeling a little bit stuck, that's a nice little short-term fix. And at the end, at the worst that can happen is it makes you feel a little bit nicer for going outside. It's definitely starting to get insanely hot in here, but I do have some other stuff I want to get to. It's kind of ironic now, you know, considering the situation. It's super hot in here, but I wrote one of the topics I wanted to talk about was how much I like working remotely. I wrote about this a little bit in my recent newsletter. But I will give it the kind of optimal version of working from home and how I like it. I was thinking, like, you know, I used to work at jobs at an agency. I also used to work in non-design jobs and all these different things. And one of the most annoying parts of working for me, what was the commute and the non-working aspect of it, having to drive to an office, deal with all that, do the hard work, put in the hours, and then go home and do that again and have to drive back. And a lot of times it felt like you wasted a lot of time doing that. I mean, I had some that was like 2.5 hours out of your day of just commuting. That's like some common stuff out here in LA. And that's insanity. But working from home, like, it's pretty cool to be able to, like, I really like having low barriers between me and like starting the work in the morning. So like I do the same kind of routine. I've talked about that before, I think, like with coffee and whatnot, get up and just start working, because I feel like I use up my best energy is in the morning. So the sooner I can start, the more I feel like I can get done before I kind of run out of gas around like 2 or 3 p.m. if I'm starting at like 9 or 10. And, doubly I'm doing that right now because it's so hot. I was trying to get up early and record, but didn't really work. It's still hot. What was I getting at? It's hard to think in this heat. Oh, but working from home's cool because I do that and I can kind of set up my schedule easier. I don't have to coordinate the time of like going from here to there and all that. But the one biggest sacrifice you make is, and it doesn't help with the burnout thing and overworking yourself, but the separation between work and play or fun or chilling or whatever you want to call it is a lot more small, especially considering my office is the same place I play video games, the same place I watch TV. Sometimes I watch TV out there or in the room with my girlfriend as well, but that part can get a little weird. The line gets blurred, and I know that's not good, but I think the ease of access and the way I'm able to get more work done, I think is still a net positive. Like, I really do like working from home, and it's I'm so grateful that I'm in a position to do that. And it's, man, like, looking back on myself, like, sometimes I don't sit back and just reflect on really what's going on. Sometimes I can get wrapped up in wanting the next best thing or comparing myself to others, or looking at YouTube analytics too much if a video is not doing good. And it's pretty, like, this video is probably not even going to do that good because I'm just sitting here rambling. And, but the thing is, like, man, if I was still in college or in high school, when I was growing up, very poor, and in high school, broke, college, broke, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had a pretty interesting upbringing too. And in college, when I got into design, I loved that, but I was making like sub a few $1,000s a year on design because there's just something on the side. Maybe I got to make someone's flyer or someone's logo in college, and you get into like the real world and you start working. And then I had jobs, and my last job paid pretty well. It was salary, but they worked me a lot. But then now I'm on track with freelance and all the content stuff to make just as much as this year as I did from my salary job in 2020. And sometimes I just got to sit back more and look at that and feel so grateful, man. Like, I'm working from home. I live in LA. That's always been something I've wanted. I've always lived in Southern California, went to school for NorCal, and I would always tell all my friends, I'm going to live in LA after. I'm going to work at a design agency or freelance or whatever. And now I'm doing that. And I have a great girlfriend. I have a nice apartment. It's hot as fuck, man. But if that's the worst thing I got to deal with this week, that's pretty cool. And like, I think it's important to, when we get so wrapped up in the like rat race and in the small things like that, I think we get wrapped up in that because you need that kind of focus to get stuff done, but then it sometimes prevents you from, the good way, it prevents you from thinking of bad stuff when you need to do things, but the bad thing is it prevents you from sometimes looking back and reflecting and being grateful like that. I'm also grateful just for all the people that watch this, man, like the podcast, the YouTube videos, the Instagram, all that shit. It's really cool that you guys, like, especially some of the OGs, I know you're out there just kind of that are always here. I always see your comments or saying nice things and just watching, and that's really cool. So I appreciate that. But enough. I'll stop with the sad stuff. But I guess not sad, but the emotional stuff. I'm going to get a little bit to some of the stuff people ask me now. Salary positions. What I think about salary positions. I just spoke about that a little bit. If you're a designer, or really this probably applies to most creative things and just salary jobs in general. A normal work week's 40 hours, right? On a salary, there's no 40 hours. You work the week and that's it. You work how you need to work. In theory, there'd be some weeks where you have to work less than 40 hours because something got done or they let you off early or it's not tracked by hours. So as long as this thing and that thing and this and that is done, then you're good. However, rarely the case, maybe like for me at least 2 to 5% of the time out of the year. Mostly you're working more than 40 hours and that's why they like say it's exploitive or stuff like that. So I would honestly, let's say you're getting offered a job salary, 60 grand a year, right? Don't think about just that 60 grand a year as, let's do some quick math. So 60K a year is $28.85 an hour. That is assuming that you're working 40 hours a week, right? And like, whatever, I think it's like 200 something days out of the year or whatever, because not the weekends, but a lot of times you might have to work on a Saturday. But assuming that that's that, I wouldn't equate those the same. Having a job that pays you $28.55 an hour is immensely better, in my opinion, than a 60K a year salary job. The thing is, a lot of the higher paying hourly jobs, they usually get capped at some point around that mark, honestly, or the 25 to 30, I'd say, except in some different skilled labor or if you're making your own hours. But compared to that is way different because you'll get overtime and all that stuff because you'll be working more. But so I would say if you want something that would be like 28 an hour, I wouldn't just say, oh, that's worth 60K a year. I think that the amount that you get overworked with salary, that's worth like 75 or 80 for all that time that you're not going to be getting paid extra. So I guess to simply put, if you're going to work salary and you want that and that's the job that you're going to get, don't just think about it as like 1-to-1. Like you need to get more money to make it worth it. And hopefully there's some kind of insurance or benefits or fucking some bullshit like a ping pong table at the office or whatever, like all the things that you don't care about. I mean, they can at least give you like some free coffee or something, right? But that shit's kind of cool, I guess. But usually that's just a sign of a company that's going to be pretty exploitive and overwork you. And I'm not trying to be all like, just doom and gloom and no job's good and all salaries bad. There's amazing companies and I haven't had only bad experiences. I guess the point is just like be prepared to work hard when you're working salary. And if you can do that, good. Just know that there's going to be times where you're working more than just 9 to 5. It's not a clock in, clock out anymore type thing. So, and look for more money when you're going to salary. That's the last piece of it. I guess 3 things to take from this long little rant is you probably will work more than 40 hours. That's what I think about salary. When you're working salary also as a one more thing I'll get to. When you're working salary as a designer, they're going to put a lot more shit on you. You're going to wear a lot more hats. You're going to start as a designer. They're going to try to push you into creating social media content, video content. Oh, can you animate this? Oh, can you learn this? When I was working at AOS doing all the packaging stuff, I spent a lot of time doing like admin, managerial stuff. Yeah, I designed the labels. I designed stuff for social, the billboards, whatever. But a lot of times I was emailing people, trying to get 3D renders from them, talking to other designers, working with other freelancers, art directing photo shoots, working with photographers, trying to get a lighting guy to go to this Airbnb that we rented to shoot this new product, like shit like that. That's cool because you get a lot of experience. You do a lot more things. You grow a lot as a overall creative. And I think you learn how to work within a team. And I wouldn't have ever went into freelancing just without working normal jobs. So that I think should be maybe a prerequisite before you hop into freelancing, unless you're just like badass and you already have all these clients lined up. You will do a lot more. So that's one of them. 3 things. You're going to work probably more than 40 hours. You're going to do a lot more than just design. You're going to wear a lot more hats, and you should be looking for higher pay than what an hourly position would offer at that same yearly rate, because you want to make it worth it and try to get some other shit out of it too. health insurance, stocks, whatever. I also want to talk about the whole AI thing. Like, it's pretty interesting what's going on with it. And when I talked with Chris Doe last week, the perspective he gave me, it was even more confused me, because he was kind of mentioning how he thinks it's going to replace like concept artists, or how like we don't necessarily have stuff to worry about, but also like we do at the same time. Like, people that are doing the ideation maybe will get replaced a lot more, because concept art can be generated a lot quicker and then refined maybe through the AI or then the physical person doing it. But yeah, he seems to think, that this is like the next biggest shift in how we're going to look at things since the internet. And I could see some stuff for that, because AI has a lot more credibility than some other like shifts, because people were saying that NFTs were going to be the next biggest shift since like the internet. And I mean, most of those aren't worth shit. So I don't really know entirely how I feel about it. Like, I'm not worried, because like I know humans, and at least myself, are in this generation, and I'll figure out something to do. And I know I'll always have a place in somewhere in design or creativity to benefit. But I do think AI might become a lot more of in our workflows. Like, the best example he uses, like the select subject tool, or like auto cutting out a person in Photoshop with the masking tool. That's all through AI and image detection. And no one's sitting around saying like, man, like you should really be cutting that out with the pen tool, or like the old school way with the quick selection or magic wand, or all these other ways. Like, funny enough, they had me actually cut stuff out that way when I worked at the Hollywood agency, when we were cutting out stuff for movie posters. But that's another thing. We have so much AI built in already, I guess, is the point, and people aren't complaining. This is just a lot more external. It's not built into a thing anymore. It's more its own thing. And I could see why people are worried, but I think overall it's gonna be disruptive, I think. But I don't think it's going to be as big of a like replacement thing, at least now. But I could be wrong. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, feel free to drop anything in the comments about the AI stuff. Has anyone benefited from it yet greatly? Has anyone been super negatively affected? Are you interested in it? Are you not? Have you used Midjourney, DALL-E 2, or whatever it's called? You can watch this video too. Right here, I'll probably pop it up on the screen and click it in the link below. I made that video making stuff with Midjourney and the posters and things. I want to see other people try that stuff out and see what they kind of think. But maybe the hype will come and it'll die down, or maybe it's here to stay. I really don't know, because it's hard to tell with those things. But I want to know how do they think that my work has evolved since I started? And that's like an insane question to answer, because the work I was doing up until like, I honestly would say 2, 3, maybe a reach years ago was pretty shit, but that's okay. Like, it took me through college and a few years after college to kind of get into the swing of things. And then now where I'm at now, like, I'm feeling pretty confident with my work, with some of my branding design work, my logo design work, my poster design, cool, like stuff I post online, more art direction stuff. Like, I really like that stuff. And I felt like I finally kind of more developed a style and kind of have some tendencies I like to play to, but also break out of them. But man, the biggest way my work evolved is it's just gotten so much better. Like, that's really the most important thing, is just getting better and better and better. I think sometimes people don't give themselves the opportunity to suck because of the internet. They feel like they have to be good at something right away. So they play into trends, or they do the easy way out using like all these assets, or they copy a style that's popular at the moment, like like bubble type, or, that kind of vintage ad style, which I've been guilty of as well. But like, it's important not to, like, right when you start out, I see accounts online and young designers, like right when they start out, they fall into this style, and it's like, yeah, they can replicate it, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Like, there's no like aesthetic, like face value way around saying it looks bad, most of it. But you're not giving yourself the risk and like the opportunity to, and not even fail. Cause like, I don't think there's like truly failing. You either get a win or you learn something. Now you have more insight. You can try new things. If you like that, if you don't, you can refine it. So like my work has evolved a lot. I used to do a lot more like minimal typographic layouts. I used to do a lot more logo design, just conceptual stuff even that I'd post online. I used to do a lot of more Illustrator stuff, not necessarily illustration, but more flat layouts with shapes and things. If I find old stuff, I'll throw it up, and it's not very good, and a lot of it's pretty mid. I remember I fell into like a shitty phase where I used like the liquify tool a lot. I kind of like was ripping off this other designer I think that I saw, and I would like take pictures of random shit and like liquify it and try to make cool shapes out of it. I feel like the new version of falling into a trend like that is, like the vintage ads or the bubble type or stuff like that. But give yourself the opportunity to experiment and find a style. Like, I think I've referenced her before, but one of the great examples of this, I think, is like Burr's Letters, Emma Burr's. When she first started out, I remember chatting with her when she had like, I don't know, like 500 followers or something. And like, she was trying out this style where she was creating these cool letters with the freeform pen tool. And I remember thinking like, that's pretty fucking interesting. Like, that's dope how she's like bringing more of this like shape driven approach to typography. And like, she even at one point did it with Play-Doh and stuff, and that was cool, and pastel. But I remember thinking like, there's something I think here to this. And she kept growing it and making all these band posters, and there's 2 podcasts we've done actually on this channel you can listen to if you want to hear more about Emma, and you can check out her work, Burr's Letters, on Instagram. But sometimes I get into this train of thought. I don't know if anyone can agree with this, and what I'm doing is it right now, so it's kind of meta. But I feel like when I explain something, another thing happens in my brain that I have to explain to preface the point I want to make later. Like, well, then you need to know this, and then this is some of the backstory. Like, I could have just told you Emma's work's dope. She creates these cool shapes out of big typographic blocks, and she found her own style. But I had to say all that other shit. But I don't know. So she makes that stuff, and I remember it being like experimental. It didn't like pop off right away, but it started doing very well. And now she's grown a huge account, and she's like a badass designer working with all these cool real brands and bands and festivals and all this. And not like to copy, like people are saying they're inspired and stuff, but I see this style popping up everywhere. Like a lot of these younger designers. And she actually posted some recently, like, here's some cool people that tagged me in work that they made, and other people are using the freeform pen tool, and other people are trying out her style and being inspired by her. And that is like perfect. That's that's awesome. Doing your own thing and it fully seeing it through and it working. Like, you can follow the trends and you can get success, and you'll probably do fine, like going off of some other thing or piggybacking off someone else's success. But even if you fail, doing your own thing feels better, and trying stuff out and not being afraid and just risking it. But doing your own thing like that and it working like that, well, man, that's just cool to see. Like, I like from outside perspective, and as like a design friend or whatever, a mutual, that's a cool thing to see. So yeah, like my work's evolved, and it's evolved because like it sucked at a point and it got better, and it's not a linear thing. It got better and better. There was phases, it went up and down, but now I'm feeling pretty good about it. But just give yourself, the freedom to just try shit. Don't worry about what's going on online. Someone was like, what's the tips? What are some tips about being consistent and posting on IG every day? Short answer, don't. Like, Instagram fucking sucks now. Like, if you're not making reels or have this formula that works every time, you're never gonna get consistent results. So trying to put consistent output into it doesn't really make sense. I think Instagram's good because there's this, even though that's not a good thing that should motivate you, sometimes it motivates me to create more personal work because I want to put it out. I try to post like 3 to 5 times a week, but like, it's not always design. Sometimes it's clips from the podcast. Sometimes it's stuff about a video. Sometimes it's old posts. Don't be afraid to post old shit that you used to like and you want to show people again. But in general, like, you don't have to post every day. Like the age of like a 365 a day poster challenge is something that you need to do, or is like important, I just think is past. And you should put that much pressure on yourself for an app that's not gonna reward you in the way that I think it should, or maybe in the way that you'll feel like happy with. If you're down to just post every day and you're not worried about growing in Instagram or worried about like the results, then I guess a tip wouldn't be more about how to stay consistent posting. The tip would be how to stay consistent working and creating stuff. And it's like I said, like, I don't know, you just got to do it. Like, I don't know, like, I know that's like that Shia LaBeouf, like, just do it. But you don't, like, there's no, like, Stephen King's talked about it. J. Cole's talked about it. Like, he said something like, you can't just write on the days you feel like it. And I think if you apply that to design or art, like, you can't just create on the days you feel inspired. That's how you're going to build like a solid career and consistency and create all the time. And, make exceptions, take breaks, don't work all day, give yourself time to rest, all that. But if I only did stuff when I felt inspired, or if I felt like it, like I don't always feel like it, probably half the time, but I do it. I don't want to be sitting here fucking recording this podcast with all of my, like, I'm not like dying to do this, but like I said in the beginning, like, I just got to get it done, It's hot as fuck. It's like 95 degrees in here now. Like, my hair's all busted. I'm sweaty, but like, we're here doing it. And this applies to design too. I'm still going to work on this freelance shit I got to work on after this. I'm going to have to put the fan on at least, because I don't have to worry about the mic. But yeah, like, that's just the thing, is like, the best tip for being consistent is to be consistent. Talk about how hot it is in here. My screen just overheated and turned black. So I'm trying to cool it down with the fan and shit. Like, whatever. Getting back to what I was saying, maybe you don't have to create every day. You don't have to force yourself to do it on that insane of a schedule, but come up with a consistent thing that you do and just stick to it. Just try to set these parameters for yourself and stay true to them, and don't let people get in the way of completing what you need to do. And I think that's a true kind of path to consistency and like building a rhythm and a nice personal practice. I hope that kind of answered it. If the person's watching that wanted to talk about that. I guess these other ones, the productivity, overcoming laziness, lack of motivation, things like that, like IG being bad. We've kind of, covered that. Like if you're asking people online, I think, like, I don't mean this in any like ill will, but like, instead of asking like, how do I be productive, or how do I overcome not wanting to do something or being lazy, like even asking that and being online like that is maybe part of the problem. Like, instead of like spending all the time looking into that stuff, you can start trying to apply it and like use that energy and get off social media more and apply it to the work you want to be doing. Like, we have so many distractions in our life these days that you really need to set a clear path from when you get up and to start working and getting stuff done, because man, it's so easy to look at TikTok or to play a video game or to just sit around and say, I'm not feeling productive. But if you just tell yourself that, you're going to even manifest it more. And it's going to, I think, send you into extended burnout or a long spiral. Like I mentioned earlier, I experience burnout, and we all do, but you don't want burnout or unproductivity or laziness to be your default. Healthy, but like solid habits, like not just some like, pure like wishy-washy, like it's only about mental health. Like, yeah, mental health matters, and like, yeah, we need to take care of ourselves and our body and our mind, but you need to like do the shit too if you want to, though. Like, that's the thing, it's also nuanced. Like, you don't have to be doing anything, but if you really want to do this kind of shit, then just do it. And like, one thing that helps me like recharge and want to do that stuff is find stuff to do also outside of design work. You don't have to only be designing. Like, yeah, I'm saying create and do what you got to do and do your work and work hard and this and that. But when you're not working, like, do fun shit. Like, another part I like about working from home is I actually want to go out on the weekends. I actually want to go to the bar with my homie and play pool. I actually want to go to raves at night. I actually want to go hang out with my girlfriend and go on trips and go to lunch or go to a party, whatever. Like, all those things are play video games, watch TV, listen to records. Like I actually want to do that because I'm not as drained from the whole like commute and stuff. And like that stuff is equally as important as the work. Like the reason I talk about the work like that and getting wrapped up in it and passion and grit and yada yada is not because I don't value that other stuff, but doing that stuff to your full ability like leaves you feeling you can do that other stuff without any guilt, and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds at that point. Don't sacrifice like your family or your friends or your personal stuff you enjoy, but also get what you need to get done. Yeah, like that stuff adds to the experience of life. Like going to that party or something, you're going to remember that way longer than the night that you sat there with like burnout or trying to solve a problem that you could have just used that time to go recharge and come back and solve it the next day. I know I kind of seem like I a little bit have like contrasting opinions on the thing because I do, man. Like this shit's nuanced, you know? I want to be like super productive and hardworking, but also want to enjoy my life. Like there's a world where both those things exist, you know? I think that's all I have for you on this one. Thank you for listening to this solo episode. They're fun to make from time to time. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, comment below if you have any opinions or ideas on any of this stuff. I'd love to hear it, and subscribe for more in the future. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Peace.